I'm Nicole Matthews, corporate America dropout turned entrepreneur and owner of the Henley Company, an event, travel, and lifestyle management firm. It wasn't that long ago that I was dreading my drive to my fancy corporate job each day or felt disenfranchised with the work I was doing. In 2007, I jumped off the corporate escalator and directly into the elevator of opportunity. Today, I'm an author, speaker, educator, and serial asker. I wholeheartedly believe that your life changes when you start creating your own opportunities and making big asks. Hands down, the business and life I have today is 100% the product of giving myself permission to design the life I want to live. It was always my dream to work at the Olympics, and by making a big ask, that dream became a reality. I now have multiple Olympic projects to add to my life resume. I created the Big Ask podcast to share these best practices with you. Whether you're an entrepreneur hungry for revenue-generating tips or an individual restless to make a significant change, the life you want to live could be just one big ask away. Get ready to be entertained by real-life stories, no-filter conversations, and inspired by the daily hustle. So let's get started. This is the Big Ask Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Big Ask Podcast. I'm Nicole Matthews, and I'm excited to be interviewing my friend Hayley Hines today. Hayley and I met in November of last year in a wonderful event that we were both attending in Tuscany, Italy, of all places. It was magical. And I soon realized that Hayley was the friend I didn't know was missing from my life. I didn't realize I needed a little more sparkle. And that is exactly what you have brought into my life. So I'm so delighted you said yes to my request of being a guest on my podcast. So how are you?
Be here. Thank you, darling. I appreciate it. And
Yes. So we were just talking before we hit the record button that it's just been a crazy, wild time. So let's talk a little bit about your business and how you're adjusting with everything going on thanks to the COVID monster and all those things. So let's get to know you. Introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, the business, if you will, is called Soul Sparkle Living. And essentially it's a lifestyle brand that includes some really lovely international experiences for women. So yes, it has been an interesting modification, if you will, the last few months, because a lot of my business is around these beautiful gatherings of women in some of my favorite places in the world. And so I've definitely had to shift, adjust a little bit and modify kind of what my work is in the world, but it always makes space for new things too, right? So it's been interesting and also a blessing to create an opportunity just to do a little bit of a redesign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. And I think we all have to take advantage of this time that we've been given thanks to COVID. It's like if we don't come out of this either learning something new or being more organized or being more centered or being more connected, like there has to be the good that comes out of all of this time that we've been forced upon.
Yeah. And I really think focusing on that is a beautiful opportunity, because I think, families were spending more time together, relationships reconnecting, and just a slower pace, like meals, homemade meals at dinner time around a table. Like there's just a lot of beauty, I think, that was able to come through in that way as well. So yeah, it was definitely unexpected, but in a lot of ways, probably exactly what we needed.
Yeah, I agree. So the last couple of years, you've been living sort of the nomadic gypsy fairy perfect little life as you run around Europe. But I know that life hasn't always been, that open to you, if you will. So let's kind of go back a little bit and talk about corporate life for you. And then ultimately what helped you to make that choice, because it was a choice to sort of give up all those things you should be doing and instead go to Europe and find your happy heart and your beautiful soul and all of those things. So talk a little bit about your corporate experience first.
So I spent a lot of years in the corporate wellness field. If you could say my industry expertise, if you will, that was really what I spent the majority of my professional life doing. A lot of, strategy and innovation and product development for for a lot of companies that wanted to create healthier employees and healthier cultures. So that was really the focus, and my academic background, if you will, kind of supported that. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, well, let me back up. For years and years and years, my big dream of my whole life was to kind of just leave everything behind and travel and speak and teach and really see the world. And so I found myself, though, in a very successful career. And you know how hard it can be when you keep having that success and you get to a point where you're like really comfortable and it's really easy, and you love what you're doing, but you know that there's more.
Yeah.
And you feel like there's something else that would be a higher calling or a deeper level of fulfillment. And so, several years ago, I finally decided that I was ready to give myself permission to live the life that I had been in my mind and in my heart really dreaming of for decades.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, well, it was interesting because it happened a couple of times. I left once and I thought, okay, I'm going to go do all the things. And then circumstances, sometimes shift. And I found myself deciding, okay, well, maybe I'm not ready to do the big one yet. So I found another kind of interim corporate situation that felt a little more spacious and a little more expansive. And that's when I was really able to kind of run parallel paths. A lot of times people think they have to quit their job and like do the thing. I'm fairly risk averse in that way. Like I'm adventurous, but I'm also very responsible. And I'm like, no, this feels much safer to me to build up my business while I still have my kind of my safety net, my security, but more space in my life. And then October 2016 is when I quit that one and put my things in storage. I was supposed to leave and travel for 3 months. That's the amount of time that we can be in the EU without a visa. I thought, perfect, I'll go for 3 months and then see what happens and then come back and do whatever else. And that was 3.5 years ago. So obviously it worked, and it's been extraordinary and even more amazing and magical than I ever dreamed it would be.
Yeah, no, it is. It is pretty remarkable what you have been able to do. And people get caught up, I think, in the, she's living in Europe. She's, living this sort of footloose and fancy free life. But I think what the most important lesson for me in that story is that you made the choice to go do that. Like, instead of talking about it for years and years and years and saying the one day I should, or someday I will, your someday showed up and you were ready to take advantage of that. And you have figured out a way to continue to do that. It wasn't just a vacation for you. It's now become a vocation for you, because now you're creating a life that allows you to do that. And that's really, I think, the most, what all of us could ask for.
Yeah.
So I commend you.
Certainly not an easy transition, but you're right. I had planned and I had thoughtfully prepared, and I had laid the foundation to where I knew, I was like, I know there's going to come the day when I'm ready. And when that day came, I had prepared in a way that I was like, okay, I'm done now. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
One of the things I hear you often say, which I think is really beautiful, is, what is the most loving thing I can do for myself right now in this moment? Or what is the most loving thing that I need? And I just think that's such a beautiful way to frame your life, because I'm sure that for most people would be, but I need to fill in the to-do list over here. And for you, it could be easily just sitting quietly, or journaling, or having a massage, or physically going to a place, up and moving, grab a suitcase, because that's what your soul is telling you that you need. And so that's just such a beautiful way, I think, to frame your life. And I'm grateful that you've given me that tool.
Yeah, and it has been such a blessing, because if you think about how much of our lives we spend doing the thing that we think we should do, or that we ought to do, or that is expected of us, or that our parents want, or our partners, or our friends, or our pastors, like whatever the parameters you find yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time doing that, what I thought I should do, the right thing, make the
Yeah.
right choice, the rational, logical thing. My life makes no sense to most people, but I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm more free than I have ever been. I'm also more loving than I have ever been because
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to make choices that are in the highest and best for me. Like before we started recording, we were talking about the fact that I thought, okay, I'm going to have to spend my summer in Dallas, which again, I don't do well with the temperature. I don't do heat and humidity. Not fun for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what's the most loving thing I can do? The most loving thing I can do is get myself out of this weather, this temperature, to give myself the greatest opportunity to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So sometimes it's a one-way ticket to the mountains. And
Yeah.
that is what was the most loving thing for myself. So I'm happy
Mm-hmm.
that teaching resonates, because I think
Yeah.
more of us that can choose that, what's the most loving thing for us, will then be the most loving thing for our families and for our communities and also
Mm-hmm.
for the world. Because if we all
Yeah.
did that, we would be operating from a place of more power and more sovereignty than everyone doing what they think they should do.
Right, right. And I think, somebody listening might say, "Oh, it's easy for her. She's doesn't have a husband and kids and a job and a dog and a mortgage and all of those things." But even if that is the life that you've created for yourself with all of those things, there's still moments when you can say,
Yeah.
what's the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? Maybe it's going for a walk around the block.
Right. Or
You
going
know,
to that yoga class or booking
yep,
that massage or,
yep.
whatever it is.
Right, right. I mean, yours just is on a bigger scale because you're like physically picking up and moving or changing locations, but there's lessons that can be taken from that in everyday life
Right.
as
And I
well.
think the beautiful part about well, one of the pieces of my life that I think has become even more interesting, if you will, and this might resonate with some people that have just come through, the quarantine and all of this is how little we actually need to be
Mhm.
happy. Like
Mhm.
physical things, stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I went through a whole renovation when I put my things in storage in San Diego when I lived there, when I was leaving, thinking, oh, I'll come back in 3 months and fix up another house and whatever. Well, that never happened. And that stuff sat there for entirely too long. Like, I'm embarrassed to say how long I paid for storage unit. But it was such a freedom for
Mhm.
me when I finally was ready to let those things go.
Mhm.
And then what's interesting is that I have 3 suitcases now. And for 2 months, when I was in Dallas recently, I had one whole suitcase, the big one, that sat in my garage for 2 months, and I didn't even touch it. And I thought, I don't even need that stuff. Why do I even have 3? What if I can just slim down to 2, right? So just this idea of releasing and letting things
Mhm.
go physically,
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful practice of thinking, what if I just kept the things that really truly bring me happiness,
Mhm.
and then start to simplify my life? Like, what would
Yeah.
that feel like, and what would that look like?
Right.
That was a
Yeah.
big interesting, even more of a shift for me, is like,
Mhm.
I've already pared down significantly, and I think I'm ready to do it even more. So
Even more. Yeah. That's amazing. You're going to be down to like one little wheelie bag on the airplane.
wouldn't that be lovely? That would be magical. That
Yes.
Well, but for me, no, my stuff is like, I have all my books and I have journals and candles and stuff that I want to make sure
Yeah.
that I have. So now I'm like, okay, one bag with like the clothes and my little travel sauna, because I have that now too, a little yoga mat and some clothes. And then my other little one will be like my books and my journals and my crystals and my things
Yeah.
that really
Right.
happen.
Right.
So,
But I think another lesson from the quarantine also is just what are we all trying to, like we're craving we're craving normal going back, whatever that means.
right,
But let's analyze what part of that normal we really want to get back to. And I
right,
think that's been eye opening as well for people in terms of, I even look at things like who in the last 2-3 months has reached out to you, right? I kind of pay attention to that with my own friendships and relationships, and just think, you know what, that's kind of interesting when there really is nothing else going on. Everybody hides behind, we're all so busy. And now all of a sudden the universe said, hang
Oh,
on a minute.
yeah.
We're going to give you anything, everything, but, we're going to give you time. And yet there weren't people who still reached out, and I mean, I'm not keeping score, but do you know, I mean, it just sort of
Oh, yeah.
begins to sort of show who in your life is really holds a place in your life, and who kind of doesn't,
Exactly. I think this
Yeah.
has been an absolute time of complete renovation, right?
Mhm.
Whether it be how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, who
Mhm.
truly shows up. I have this philosophy right now, and I've had it for a while. Because, when you're in quarantine by yourself in a foreign country and people you think you're going to reach out don't, you're like, oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And I had this philosophy of like, who's going to be on the bus with me when we're through this? And there's
Mhm.
a lot of people that are no longer on the bus.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Yep.
Because
Mhm.
I think this is a time where you can get really, really honest about who do you really enjoy, who do you
Mhm.
feel nourished by, and who do you feel lit up around, and who do you feel inspired by. And then
Yeah.
there's some that you're just like, meh, no.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's okay. And I
Yeah.
think this is definitely a time for reevaluation and renovation of what we want our life to look like moving forward. So
Yeah.
yeah, the word normal, I'm just like, no, let's just create something new.
Something new for
Let's step
sure.
into a whole new way of being and take the things, bring through the things that we love and that we learned, and let the rest
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Maybe we
I
don't have
agree.
to eat out 3 or 4 times a week, and we want to
Right.
grow a garden instead, and we want to create art and
Mhm.
be more in tune with nature, like some of those things that maybe we weren't aware of before.
Yeah.
Those are a beautiful thing to step into.
Yeah. I think it has been, in an odd way, it's been a real gift. I think it's been, I've really enjoyed the quiet, even from like the number of cars going up and down, the street outside my office. And I don't, I live in a residential area. There's not a lot of traffic anyway, but in the heart of the quarantine, we could go hours and never hear a car, and it's just, I just feel like the whole world needed to just be quiet for a minute. And so for me, that's really what I've taken away from it. Yes, losing work or losing clients. I mean, all that kind of stuff can be replaced, but
Yeah.
just the sense of quiet and the sense of what really matters has been really what I've tried to pay attention to
Yeah.
in during this time.
I
So
love I love it. Yeah.
talk a little bit about the programs that you have for women, and I know you're also starting something, a newer project that you're excited about, for
Yes.
CEOs, if that's okay. We talk about that.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how do you serve your clients?
So, I am a huge believer in the fact that we can bring all the parts of us to the party, right?
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time in my corporate world in senior level positions where I had to completely really separate you know how I was showing up in one part of my life versus the fullness of my life. And so what I believe is that when we are the fullest expression of ourselves, we are so much more impactful, so much more magnetic, so much more effective in our leadership
Hmm.
when we are the fullness of ourselves. And so
Yeah.
the program that I'm working on right now that is super exciting is really a certification around helping women leaders step into that. And it's
Hmm.
called the Soul Centered CEO. And it allows them to really kind of embody all the parts of themselves, utilizing not only their IQ or their emotional intelligence, right? But also their spiritual intelligence.
Hmm.
And that's really an area that is going to be a huge part of this certification, is helping you really tap into the kind of leader that you really want to be. You want to be compassionate, you want to be empathetic, you want to be gracious and
Hmm.
kind. You want to be impactful, but you also want to be soul led, not ego driven.
Yeah.
And so that's really what this body of work is. It's been brewing for a while, for
Hmm.
several years, because you know how things like that go.
Yep.
So just now coming to fruition. So it's kind of like one part spiritual development and then one part business mastery. So
Yeah.
essentially for women that really feel called to create a life that is incredibly fulfilling, their highest level of service in the world. And there's also a pretty big give back component, because I
Yeah.
believe that the more of us that are able to create revenue and abundance within our business, we also have the responsibility to give back
Mm.
significantly. And so
Yeah.
that's really part of this as well. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
exciting. Yeah, very exciting. And I think it's good timing too, because again, not to keep harping on COVID, but it's, the
Right,
lens we're all looking at now.
right,
Um, I think that's also helped us to realize what sort of leaders we want to be in our businesses. And, I've heard so many stories about companies who would never have imagined letting employees work from home. And now all of a sudden, they've been forced to, and it's like, oh gosh, what do you mean? It really is working and people are productive and they can homeschool kids and get work done and, keep a house and work out and do all those things they need to do. And they don't need to be in my office 9 to 5. And so,
right,
yeah, so I think that has been an important lesson for people who didn't think that there was room for flexibility.
right.
And then also just realizing that, everybody has a lot of things on their plate.
Yeah,
Life is hard for a lot of people,
yeah,
the daily getting up. And so if you can be a leader who comes from a place of compassion and, uh, cultivating excellence without it being detrimental to
exactly.
people, I think is a really lovely path to be
Yeah,
going down. So the timing for your program is, I think, perfect as we come out of and start to, we've all been in the cocoon, right? So now it's like the cocoon is opening as things are physically opening, and literally the butterfly is coming. And what color, what style, what butterfly do you want to be now, which
exactly.
is great.
Yeah. So it does,
Yeah.
like, the timing definitely is, and it's always perfect, isn't it? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, it's always perfect. So, there's moments when I'm like, I wish I would have done it sooner. But now I'm like, no, just,
Yep.
it's like with everything,
Yep.
it all is aligned at the appointed time. And so it does feel really, really lovely to be able
Yeah.
to bring this in right now. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I will definitely include in the show notes how people can find that
Yeah,
program. So
I
be
appreciate
wonderful. So the last 3 years of living in Europe, what has that taught you about yourself?
it. I think well, I think travel in general is an extraordinary gift, because it allows you to open your mind and open your heart to ways that other people live.
Yep.
You know, I think it's an incredible gift and opportunity, and has been a blessing to me to be able to experience other cultures and other, um, whether it's the cuisine, the culture, that just the depth of history that is available that we don't necessarily have here in the U.S.
Hmm.
Right? Um, Meaning just people from all over the world, and the ability to open my mind in a way that I might not have been able to
Right.
before. A much more expanded worldview, a lot of compassion, a lot of
Hmm.
opportunities that I have been able to have, that I wouldn't have had if I didn't give myself permission to have that experience. So
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoyed
That's amazing. And I know Italy is your kind of your chosen second home, right? So
Yeah, I love.
um, you spend a lot of time in Italy.
Yeah, as much
And
as possible. And I've also spent a lot of time in France, around Paris, and then Southwest France and the south of France also I love. But
mhm,
yeah, Tuscany is just a special, special place. So
definitely.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. So after quarantine, hopefully your life can return back to Europe. Is that what you're feeling called to now?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Every day I check in, right? Because I'm always like, all right, where am I in the highest and best? Is this the highest and best place for me right now? Those are some of the
Mhm.
kind of the daily questions that I ask. And um, so yeah, just kind of in that space between of how long I'm going to be here, and then when I'm able to go back there, and trying to stay unattached and just open to let the magic unfold, because that's
Yeah.
really all I can do right now. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, your bio describes you as one part fairy, one part wise sage, with all parts sparkle. And
mm,
now knowing you, having the pleasure of getting to know you, there's like no better bumper sticker in the world for you than that line. But when you are one part fairy, one part wise sage, what does your day consist of?
So I spend most of my time by myself. We mentioned that before we popped on here. Um, it's interesting because a lot of the work that I do is a lot of behind the scenes, like this
Mm-hmm.
deeper spiritual work that I'm supposed to be doing. I talk a lot about anchoring light. And so a lot of what I need to do personally is really allow as much of that into my own personal physical body
Mm-hmm.
that I can help anchor that for humanity, right? Because we're going through a massive change right now. So a lot of meditation, a lot of kind of activation work, which is a lot of what I do with my clients. So I feel like obviously I have to practice what I preach. And so a lot of my days are spent in that, in deep, like either spiritual teaching or learning. Because again, to be a teacher, you also have to be a student, right? So
Yeah.
I'm also writing a book right now called Invocations, Prayers and Blessings to Illuminate Your Life. So I'm
Mm.
spending a lot of time really trying to get that into the world. I think it's obviously really important now
Mm-hmm.
more than ever. And then also creating, like I said, creating these new programs and connecting with my private clients. I do a lot of spiritual mentorship, private clients as well. So I work with
Mm-hmm.
them on a regular basis as well, which was one of my favorite things to do. So,
Yeah.
and then I'm also trying to really just take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in such a beautiful place, so spending as much time out in nature as possible is really healing for me right now. So,
Yeah.
um, which it is for everyone. So hopefully, those of
Mm-hmm.
you that are listening, you need to up your self care game as much as you can and get outside
Yeah.
as often as possible. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of my day.
Your day. Yeah, that's beautiful. And what challenges do your clients have that are showing up for you? So, if I'm a client of yours, what mainly is drawing me to you in terms of
Um,
a solution or?
Yeah, so I tend to be kind of the wizard behind the curtain. So
Mm-hmm.
it could be they want to grow their business and they want help becoming more visible and energetically magnetic to their ideal clients. So I can help
Mm-hmm.
work with them in that perspective, right? Some of them are it's around relationship and they may have not been in a relationship in a long period of time and they want to really open their heart and
Mm-hmm.
be able to call in that beloved or that beautiful partnership that they may not have been in before in a while or
Yeah.
ever, some of them. Also starting a business, right? So I do a lot of work with women that feel kind of like me. They're not happy in their current job, and so they
Mm-hmm.
really want to deepen their experience. Like, how do they want to spend their days? So we do
Mm-hmm.
some lifestyle redesign work, and then also part of what I'm really good at is seeing how you can monetize your brilliance. So putting together, programs or offerings that you would be able to really serve the world with the
Mm-hmm.
highest level of gifts. That for some reason my brain works that way, and I'm like, oh, well, you can put this together, da da da. So
Yeah.
I work with them in that way as well. So it's
Oh.
kind of a variety of
Mm-hmm.
things, but really just I'm back there kind of whispering in their ear, like, know, you can do it. And this is
Yeah.
how, and really providing tools and resources to help them clear any blocks or limiting beliefs is what's
Mm-hmm.
held back, and then activating them in a way that allows them to step into the fullest expression of themselves. Really, it's
Yeah.
just the stuff that I've done for myself. Like
Right.
that's really it. And then I just
Right.
do the same thing.
I think limiting beliefs is an important topic to sort of talk about because until somebody is ready to receive the guidance,
Yeah.
you could be talking to a client till you're blue in the face,
Right.
but they need to realize, what's causing me. Is it self doubt around money? Is it insecurity? Is it self esteem? All of those kinds of things need to be brought to the surface
Right.
before the real teachings can begin,
You have to
as
make
far as
space.
I'm concerned.
You
Yeah.
have to make space. And so
Yeah.
if you come at it with a suitcase full of beliefs and thoughts and fears and all these
Hmm.
things, it really does take some time to kind of clear that out to allow yourself to then receive what's
Right.
available for you.
Hmm.
And I'm a huge believer that there's such an extraordinary amount of blessing and abundance and love and beauty if we just allow ourselves to step into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how I've designed my whole life now, is like, no,
Yeah.
I'm only available for this feeling, like the way that I want to feel is
Right.
really important. And so I've created my life around that.
Mm-hmm.
And really, really beautiful.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings that you say beyond what's the most loving thing I can do is when you say, I'm not available for that. And I just think that is so beautiful. Like, it's so perfect. And if more people would just use that, because it allows them to say, I cannot emotionally, physically, spiritually engage in this. This is not serving me in any way, nor am I, or perhaps I'm not ready at this moment to have that conversation that
Right.
needs to be had.
Yeah.
I know for you, it's a funny story of the first time I think you said it was on an airplane with somebody who was chatty McChatty, I think is what you told me he was, and he wouldn't he wouldn't stop, and he wanted to engage in a conversation that you weren't around politics, that you weren't willing to have. And simply turning to him and saying, I'm not available for this conversation. I mean, talk about just like a showstopper of just like, boop, that's it, curtain down, thank you. But it's such a powerful line, and I'm so grateful that I now have that in my arsenal. But it really is important. I think that, again, going back to boundaries, right,
Yeah.
and limiting beliefs. Yeah.
And what's beautiful about that is that it's a defining moment, and it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like a line in the sand. It's like, I'm not available. Oh wow, no, I'm not available for that. It's just such a clear
Mm-hmm.
decision, right? A
Mm-hmm.
choosing. And then on the other side, it's, I am available for, this is what I'm available for.
Yeah.
This is what I'm available to feel in my body, in my relationship, in my work. And I'm just not available to feel anything other than that anymore. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
available for anything less than this.
Yeah.
And so it really has been a way, almost a philosophy. And you're right, it was like, I just spit it out, and I was like, ah, but it was the most loving thing in that moment that I could do for myself, because I was like, I'm not expending my energy or my
Mm-hmm.
time on
Mm-hmm.
that. And so it did really become kind of a um, philosophy from then
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
I think both of those sayings should become Post-its or magnets. If you want to monetize, that needs to become a magnet or a t-shirt, right? Or a Post-it at a minimum. Everyone listening should have that on a Post-it on their computer or on their mirror in the morning or something, but to just be constantly reminded of what's the most loving thing I can do for myself. And then I'm not available for that conversation, for that activity, for that event, for that.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
yeah.
very empowering place, it's a
Mm-hmm.
very, I talk a lot about sovereignty, which is just like my ability to choose what is in the highest and best for me. Like, what is it that
Mm-hmm.
I desire? What is it that I want? And my ability to decide for myself, by myself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you come at it from that place, and yes, you can use those two phrases to help anchor kind of
Mm-hmm.
that concept, the teaching. And it's
Yeah.
also a way to shut people up and down,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, lovingly, right?
Right.
Because I could have said something else to that guy, and I'm
Yes.
like, don't be tacky, Hayley. But it was
Yeah.
like 6 in the morning, and I was like, oh. And that came through perfectly. And it really is, and it's not dishonoring to them, it's honoring to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you can choose to honor yourself,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that feels so good.
Right.
I don't have to do that thing. I don't have to be in that conversation. It doesn't feel good to me. So if you
Right.
use that, it is the most loving thing you can do for
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, I'm grateful that I have those in my toolbox now, because, and you as well in my toolbox as well.
You got
So
me in your back pocket.
let's talk a little bit about sort of mentoring, or who's been important in your life. So have you had mentors? Do you currently have mentors? Sort of, who do you seek out?
Um, so in my professional life, in my corporate life, I really struggled with women mentors in
Mm-hmm.
my industry, and there were not really very many that I actually wanted to emulate, which I found was a problem,
Yeah.
honestly. Which is also, I think, partly why this new program this certification is so important to me, because I didn't want to be like them. And so that was a real kind of like issue, because I was like, wow, I'm on my own. Like, I'm the only woman sitting at this table full of senior level executives, and there's not anyone else here to mentor me. So outside of that, since I've had been on my own really since then, outside the corporate world, there have been teachers that have come in. I have a deep training in yoga and different types of yoga and different meditations and mindfulness. So for me, it's been more kind of the in and out for that particular teaching, because I love to learn stuff. So I've got like 8 million certifications of stuff. So it's almost more like situational. I do have my own kind of wizard behind the curtain for myself, which has been incredibly helpful and powerful. And also just then I have a very small but tight network of dear friends, dear wise sage friends that that are able to really speak truth to me, speak their truth in love to me, that I've given permission to do that. So for me, it's been more that small circle, and then teachers that have come in for different particular topics and circumstances.
I think that's great. What are you currently reading or listening to right now?
Do you want to see the stack? I could show you.
Sure. Let's go show and tell.
Okay, here's what we got. So I love books. That's why I have to have a whole suitcase full of books.
Yep.
So I've got Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Have you read through it?
Not it, but I'm working on this one. My problem too is I read like 5 things at a time.
Okay.
So that's on the list. I also have Mystical Teachings of Jesus. Well, the Mystical Teachings is the first one. This is the second one. So this is a 3-part series. I have all 3 of these, that powerful, paradigm shifting. And then also the 7 initiations. There's a lot of this in my work. Let's see what else is in here. Oh, Ascended Masters, Rituals and Prayers, just everyday reading. So silly. What else? And the 7 Sacred Flames. So a lot of the reading that I do is like mystical, esoteric text. But then that's why I have Glennon, because I'm like, okay, that's a little bit lighter and a little more,
yes,
less easy. So
yes, I think you'll enjoy Untamed. I read it right when it came out. I'm a big fan of her writing, and I think this one is her most. The other 2 are extraordinarily raw, but I think this one is really raw in more of an empowering sort of way. Where she's really just like stripped down everything that she was told she should be. The life she should have.
I think that's why I resonated, because I'm like, that's how I was. Like, I was raised very like, do the right thing, make the right choice, fit in the box, and that just never really suited me, so I'm excited to get through this, because I feel like it really will resonate a lot.
I can't wait for you to read it. We should chat about it after you read. So let's talk in the spirit of the theme of the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about making big asks and sort of what your journey of through life has been, and times when you've had to make a big ask. So is there something in particular that you think of when you hear the word big ask?
Well, I think for me, it's been maybe on this journey of the last few years, right?
Yeah.
A few times when there have been things that I really wanted, that I'm like, oh, how can I figure that out? And I've had to really, maybe go beyond my comfort zone and reach out. One particular example that I'm thinking about is when I wanted to house sit for Julia Child's summer home in the south of France.
Oh God.
No big deal, right? And that felt really exciting to me. And I was like, I really want to do that. Like, what's
the most loving thing I can do for myself?
Exactly. Like, I could stay for a month or 2 in the south of France. Okay. So I had a mutual friend so a friend had bought this house, but I was just Facebook friends. I wasn't like in her world. And then I had another friend that was closer to her that I was friends with. So I was like, this is something I really want to do. Is there any
Yeah.
way? And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, let me just send a message. And I was like, it was
Yeah.
that easy.
Right.
That easy. And I had
Yes.
this whole big thing. And I ended up being able to spend Thanksgiving at Julie Child's house in her kitchen. Like we had Thanksgiving. And I just was like, whose life am I in? Right? Like, what is this? But it was just being willing to
Mm-hmm.
ask. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I learned from that is that the worst thing that can happen is somebody says no. That's the worst
Exactly.
possible thing.
The worst thing.
Best possible thing is you're having, beef bourguignon in Julie's kitchen for Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like that's the kind of things that I'm like, now I just ask
Yeah.
because who knows, right? You never
Right.
know.
Right. No, that's such a great example because so often people will that'll stay in their own head and they won't put it out into the world. So no one knows how to help them. Right.
Exactly.
If I don't know that you want to be at Julia Child's summer home, how do I
Exactly.
know how to help you?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, it might not necessarily be that I have the right answer, but all too often, if somebody, makes a request like that to me, it's either, oh, I do know somebody, or I'll be reading an article soon after. Right. And I can make a connection or,
Right.
whatever it might be. But just the fact that you were bold enough to just put it out there. Right. Well, it really, I mean, and who cares if your friend is like, how dare she ask about that? Like, who cares? Your friend's not going to do that anyway. Right. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
we set ourselves up with the, like, what if I
Yeah.
look a fool? Look, all the things.
And then you think, oh, all those people responded because she had posted and there's like 300 people. And I'm like, why would she pick me out of the 300
Yeah.
people? My friend is like,
Yeah.
one message and it was done. I was like,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
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 So
No,
yeah,
that's
I think
perfect.
deciding what you want and then being brave enough to ask, it's like the worst case scenario is they say no. That's the
Right.
worst thing.
Right. And it's already no if you never ask.
Thank
So, I
you.
mean,
Thank you.
it
Yes.
might not be yes right now, but maybe it's yes next year, So, yeah, no, thank you. That's a perfect example of what I talk about with the big ask is that you just have to be willing to just tell people what it is that you need. Because if we don't know, we can't help you.
And I think a lot of times people either they don't know what they want or they're
Mm-hmm.
not honest enough with themselves
Mm-hmm.
to speak the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of it too is getting really, really honest about what is it you really desire? Like, what is it you really want? And then again, being brave enough to ask for it. So those are the
Yeah.
two sides of that, I think, is that
Mm-hmm.
some people are like, well, I would never get to do that. I mean, you're so
Yeah.
lucky. You're so this. It's like,
Right.
no, all I did was just ask and it happened.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
that's how it goes,
Yep.
So I love that
Perfect.
that's your
Yeah.
teaching and that's your philosophy because I think
Mm-hmm.
at least for me, the majority of the magic that I've been able to, I call it the magic carpet ride, like this life that I have. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, of course that's what's happening because I've been honest and really clear on my desire and then
Yeah.
be enough to ask for it or to choose it for myself and make that decision and give myself permission to
Yeah.
do it. So
No, it's so true. I mean, the story that I tell in my book, which is called Permission, by the way,
okay.
is about how I wanted to go work at the London Olympics. And I knew
Yes.
somebody who could help me make that happen. And so by being bold and telling everybody in my circle, this is what this is my goal. And if you have any connections that can help me with an introduction or an opportunity, and it was so wonderful to live in that swell of positivity because when I would see people, they would ask, how's it going? Did you get there? And then when I announced that I was actually going and going to be in London for 8 weeks, I mean, just the cheerleading that occurred. And
Because
it's,
they were,
it's not about that, but they were invested because
they were
they
in
had
it.
helped. Yeah, exactly. And it was such a special moment and really an amazing chapter in my life but it all started with one question of just asking people to help me
Yeah.
to say, if you know anybody, right? I mean, just if you have an office there, if you have a cousin there, whomever, I'd love to connect with that person and just see what opportunity might be created.
Oh, I
So,
love that so much.
yeah, I know. It's all good. So, all right. So we always end every podcast with rapid fire questions. Not that I'm ready to let you go yet, but but we have time limits we have to adhere to. People will get bored if it's just you and I 4 hours later. So
chatty.
chatty. That's right. So first thing that comes to your mind, no judgment, no pressure. Okay.
Yep.
Title of your lifetime movie.
Oh gosh, Life on the Magic Carpet Ride.
Mm-hmm. If you could change places with any celebrity right now, who would it be?
Oh, I don't know about that one. Let's see. I'm not in that.
Yeah, you're not in that. Well, maybe it's like a spiritual teacher or.
I mean, I think Oprah does some pretty cool stuff.
Perfect. Oprah is a good answer.
Yeah.
Perfect. When do you feel happiest?
When I'm working in my brilliance. Like for me, it's when I have my in-person experiences with my ladies somewhere fabulous, and we're like sitting on a patio overlooking beautiful things, having champagne, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Good
Peachy
answer. Yes. If you were running for politics, what would be your biggest campaign promise?
Oh gosh, unravel everything and begin again.
Mm-hmm.
Start over.
Ultimate dinner party. 4 guests. Who do you invite?
Okay. Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Dalai Lama.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 more.
Uh-huh.
Do they have to be living, or they can be anyone?
No, living, dead. They could be a movie character. Doesn't matter.
Oh, and then Jesus and Mary Magdalene.
Oh, perfect. Let's round that out.
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. Right this minute, you have to get a tattoo. What do you get and why?
Do you want me to show you the one I just got recently?
Oh.
Did you see this already?
No.
Wait, hang on.
There you go. Oh, okay.
Better?
Oh, yes. Right after I saw you in Italy, I think you around your birthday or something. Didn't you get that? Yeah. Okay.
I got this, and it says Amor Fati, and it's a Latin phrase meaning lover of one's fate. And it means that no matter what happens, it is in the highest and best for you, and allow yourself to be thankful, even in the suffering, because it was exactly what needed to happen for you to move forward.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Perfect. Perfect answer. Biggest pet peeve?
Oh gosh. Maybe people that talk to me before I'm ready to have a conversation in the morning.
Yeah. What's your wish for the next generation?
Oh, that they can have a life that is free of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That they be able to have exactly what they desire.
Mm-hmm. And when does your light shine the brightest?
When I'm doing my work in the world.
Yeah.
Perfect. My soul is sparkling, yeah.
And last question, what is your big ask, either personal or professional right now, that we can help you with?
I think right now for me, I mean, this is where my head is right now today, because I'm in this program. It's really connecting any women that feel like they're ready to lead from their soul, right? Like the next level of their life and their love and their leadership. Connecting me with those women would be phenomenal.
Yeah, perfect. And how can women get in touch with you?
So a couple of different ways. Obviously, my website is really easy. You can connect there, soulsparkleliving.com, soulsparkleliving.com. And then I'm on Facebook at Hayley Hunter Hines, or on Instagram, Hayley Hunter Hines. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for saying yes to my big ask, for you being on the guest on this podcast. I always love spending time with you. So on behalf of all my listeners, I thank you for your time, Hayley.
Thank you, my love. It was a
all right.
pleasure. Thank you.